Welcome to another episode of What It's Like. My name is Jay, and I will be your host. Picture this. You just obtained a weird, obscure car that you would love to know more information about. This channel covers those cars in depth, history, specs, design, engine episodes sprinkled in. If that sounds of interest, if that sounds up your alley, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Glasspar was founded right after World War II in 1947, based in Costa Mesa, California, by Bill Tritt. Glasspar was a fiberglass boat-making company. Tritt had interest in both boats and automobiles, and even studied marine architecture and boat building at California State Teachers College in Santa Barbara, California. By the mid-50s, Tritt's Glasspar boat business was producing between 15 and 20% of all fiberglass boats sold in the USA. In 1949, Ken Brooks, who was friends with Tritt, wanted Tritt to build him a custom hot rod car built out of fiberglass. Notice the year is 1949, which is 4 years before the Corvette, which oftentimes is claimed to be the very first fiberglass car built in America. Even the hot rod Brooks was building wasn't the first fiberglass car built here in the USA. The first fiberglass car / vehicle was the Stout Scarab, 1946. Though not fiberglass, it's important to note that Henry Ford was finding different materials to make cars out of, like hemp, and he also developed a soybean type of plastic. Tritt would make various sketches of design, different body proposals for Ken's hot rod project. The style that Ken and his wife Dolly would ultimately settle on was a low-slung styled roadster-bodied type of car. It would take Tritt a year and a half to make this body. That car would be called the Brooks Boxer. The Brooks Boxer was shown at the Los Angeles Motorama, where there were 3 other cars made of fiberglass on exhibit alongside the Brooks Boxer: the Lancer, Wasp, and Scorpion. Brooks Boxer was a hit and would pave the way for Tritt to bring to market the Glasspar G2. It's important to note that Tritt would also design the Woodill Wildfire, which was also constructed of fiberglass for Robert Woodill, who was a Dodge and Willis dealer. Yes, that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. Everybody says Willys. I honestly don't care how you pronounce it. I'm just trying to pronounce it right.
Willis Motors, manufacturers of Jeep 4-wheel drive vehicles.
Woodill Wildfire was sold from 1952 through 1958. 300 were said to have been made, but Tritt himself says that he only built 90 of them. Either way, there's only about 9 of them said to survive. Volvo P1900 was built from fiberglass, and it was courtesy of Bill Tritt over at Glasspar. He also did work for Walt Disney. Tritt also made the bodies for the Kaiser Darren, which was a car with sliding doors. The Glasspar G2 was built from 1950 through 1954. The Glasspar G2 could be had as a coupe or a roadster. Chassis could either be a Willis chassis or a Ford chassis, and it could be set up for any V8 from back in the day, but most of the cars either had a Ford flathead V8, Mercury, Cadillac V8, or a Chevy V8, but some of the cars did leave the factory with a Willis 6-cylinder. The Glasspar G2 did have a follow-up car called the Ascot in 1955, but it never made it to production. It's important to note that the G2 body was hand-laid, making it strong. The body is mounted to a tubular steel chassis. The Glasspar 2 would pave the way for the kit car industry. Let's talk specs. It rides a wheelbase of 101 inches. It weighs, it varies. That is a variable depending on what engine is powering the car, but around 2,000 pounds. Price, $2,950, which would be equivalent to you spending $35,120.92 in the year 2024. Total Glasspar G2 was only around about 100 units, 29 of which are known to survive. Moving on to engine, which we've already kind of sort of alluded. You can have whatever engine you would want in this car. And our featured car is the 390 cubic inch displacement overhead valve Cadillac V8 6.4 liters. It's good for 325 horsepower, perhaps more at 4,800 RPM. 430 pound-feet at 3,100 RPM with a bore of 4 inches and a stroke of 3.875 inches. Compression is 10.5 to 1. Let's talk styling on this rare, beautiful car. But before we do, you're probably sitting there wondering how the hell I was able to find this car. This car was at the car corral. Actually, it wasn't. It was in the flea market at Hershey this past year, and I was hanging out with a friend of the channel and a friend of mine, Ken Boyle. He's the one who spotted it, and he said, "Hey Jay, what the heck is that?" And all I knew at the time was the company at that point, that they made the bodies for the Kaiser Darren. So let's talk styling of this car. This car, you have to remember, this car is all one single piece, much like a Carmen Ghia. The only pieces that come off are the doors and the hood. This car doesn't have an external trunk. Very petite trim rings around the headlights, bigger bezels around the smaller lights, just below the headlights. This bumper isn't the right bumper that should be on this car. Do you know what car this bumper is off of? I honestly don't know. It kind of sort of looks like a Pontiac bumper. The more you look at this car, the more you're just like, wow, this is such a nice looking car. The grille gives the car a mouth, and the front looks kind of like a face. Super smooth design. Notice how the fenders rise up in reference to the hood line. This does have a slight hood center line going back to the two-piece windshield. Top of the fenders also have a slight crease at the top. Diamond-shaped G2 badge in the front. The fenders are rolled, very smooth, side profile, no trim, no moldings. Notice there aren't any exterior door handles. Full wheel discs. Also notice how the back curves up. Gas filler on the driver's side. Bumper in the rear is different than the front bumpers. 2 brake lights in the center. Center line on bodywork. Also notice this car does not have a trunk.
No, that's fine. It's good. It's like, no, it's good. You're sitting on the floor in this car.
On to the button switches and knobs. Starting on the left and moving right, it's important to note that the dash layout can vary from car to car, as well as materials used for seats. They would build the interior to your specifications. Amp meter, coolant temperature, 8,000 RPM tach, 160 mile per hour speedometer, gasoline gauge, oil pressure. Underneath the gauges are a series of toggle switches. That very first one's for the headlights. The next one, I would assume that one is for ignition, but I'm not 100% sure. Windshield wipers. The light switch might just be for the panel lights, and these might be for the headlights, or vice versa. And the F is for electric fan.
390 Cadillac V8. Notice it has the external oil filter. Dual 4s. Battery boxes over there. That sounds a hell of a lot better than a Kaiser Darren.
On the positive side, you will be the only person at any event unless it's an early fiberglass car show with these cars. These cars are super rare. Rust-proof body V8 performance in a sporty, low-slung body, full instrumentation, said to be a blast to drive. Against it, these are extremely rare. Parts do not exist. So, like, if you need a door, you'll have to have that made, more than likely. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. Two scenarios today in the fiberglass early car segment. Which one would you rather have? 1955 Wood Ill Wildfire, or 1952 Glasspar G2, or 1952 Volvo P1900. Little bit of trivia about the Volvo P1900, which Volvo did make them, but they made them in super small numbers. Only 68 were produced. The first 19 were produced by Glasspar. This car paved the way for the Volvo P1800. All right, I'm going to leave this here for a minute. On to the second scenario. 1953 Chevrolet Corvette, or 1952 Glasspar G2, or 1954 Kaiser Darren. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If this is your first time checking out the content and you dig what you saw, I would like to introduce you to the subscribe button if you're interested. Thanks again for everything. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, leave them in the comment section below. Until next time, toodaloo! Welcome to the after show. This part of the video doesn't have any sound or commentary, but you can put whatever you wish in the background to your viewing enjoyment, whatever tickles your fancy. Enjoy. I totally forgot to mention that this car was for sale. I'm going to reach out to the owner and see if it's still on the market. If it is on the market, I will link it all in the description.